Hi everyone, we are just going to wait a few minutes here for everyone to get on the line, so just hang tight for a couple moments. Thank you. All right, so we are going to get started today. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name's Maddie. I'm an enrollment advisor with Enrollment Services, and this is our Faculty of Pure and Applied Science webinar today. So just going to go over our agenda. Going to do a few housekeeping items, some introductions. Going to go over our course format overview for science. We have some wonderful science faculty on the line who are going to be able to help explain how your courses and labs might be delivered come this fall. We have a few frequently asked questions that have been sent in, and the faculty will address those. And then at the end today of our session, we have a live Q&A. So that being said, with housekeeping, there is a chat box, so you're able to type in questions. You can do so throughout the webinar. We will be addressing questions at the end. Keep in mind that there's a bit of a delay with Microsoft Teams, so if you don't see your question right away, you just have to wait a little while for it to load up there. The session is recorded, so these recordings can be found on our student life page, usually about 2 working days after the session. So this should be available early next week. We did have a couple fall information sessions yesterday on more of the operational side of things. So if you have questions about, campus navigation, residence, dining hall, those sorts of things, those were covered in yesterday's sessions, and those will also be available online to view early next week. So check back for those if you missed those yesterday. And today there is planned communication for you going out regarding your courses. So keep an eye out for that as well. All right, and one last piece of housekeeping. So if you are new to Acadia, if you're an incoming first-year student, we have a really wonderful webinar series called Acadia 101. So there's a few upcoming webinars for that. Study Abroad and Co-op is on Monday, I believe, and then there's also a financial preparedness one coming up next week as well. So you can attend those, and again, those will all be available afterwards too if you're unavailable to attend the live session. All right. So I'm going to let the faculty members I'm going to let Dr. Suzie Currie, our Dean of Science, introduce the faculty members on today's webinar.
Hi everyone, it's wonderful to be here with you this afternoon. Thanks for hopping on this webinar. So I'm Suzie Currie, I'm the Dean in the Faculty of Pure and Applied Science, and I'm delighted to welcome several of our wonderful faculty members here with us today, and I'll take this moment to introduce everyone. So first we have Dr. Peter Williams, who's the head of the physics department.
Hello, how are y'all doing?
Next we have Dr. Kath Morley, who's the acting director of the School of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Hi everyone.
Dr. Randy Newman, who's the head of psychology.
Hi everyone.
Dr. Rob Rayside, the head of Earth and Environmental Science.
Hello out there.
Dr. Darcy Benoit, Director of the School of Computer Science.
Hello.
Dr. Matt Lukeman, the head of Chemistry.
Hi, everyone.
Dr. Paul Arnold, the Director of the School of Engineering.
Good afternoon, one and all.
And Dr. Glennis Gibson, a professor in the Department of Biology.
Hi, everyone.
Great. And I think next up, we're going to discuss a little bit about the course formats. And as Maddie said, you're going to be getting specific information about your courses and what format the courses are going to take later on today. So right now we want to give you a general overview of what these mean with a couple of examples. So the first option would be on campus, and this would be what you would be used to in a normal university environment pre-COVID. So this is in-person delivery, and it can't be modified for virtual instruction. We'll have a few classes that are face-to-face or on campus, and these would usually be smaller classes where physical distancing is possible, because of course it's your safety and well-being and health that's most important to us. And Dr. Rayside is going to give us an example from Earth and Environmental Science of a face-to-face or on-campus format.
Hello again. So as Dr. Currie mentions, most of these courses would be small classes, usually the lab components of the classes, and they would be done using samples or using equipment that couldn't be done in any other way. But the example I'm going to give you is the example of our geology and environmental science field schools. These field schools are very interactive and very experiential, so you have to be there. It's not easy to get your feet wet if you're doing it online. You really have to be in the stream with me as we're going up the river looking for the rocks. So that's the sort of course that has to run as a face-to-face course. Now that particular course, these courses don't actually run until the end of the winter term, and hopefully things will be much better by then, but we're planning for it just in case.
Great, thanks Dr. Rayside. The next course format is the hybrid format, and many of our courses this year will be in this hybrid format. So this is super flexible, so a very flexible course structure that will combine classroom-based and virtual learning. So those virtual elements could be scheduled, so that would be live attendance, or it could be unscheduled, so you could do it at your own pace. So you can see a lot of this formatting working with classes that might have online or virtual content, and then labs that may be hybrid. And I'm going to turn to Dr. Matt Lukeman, the head of chemistry, to give you an example of a hybrid course delivery.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think the hybrid is going to be a great option, and I feel like it is the most flexible out of all of these options. And I think the majority of our courses will end up being hybrid. And as an example of a hybrid course, I'll let you know what we're planning to do for our first year chemistry next year. And what we're going to be doing is having videos available with the course content available online for anyone to access at their own pace. The scheduled classroom times are going to be used to do problem solving, and this will be live, and students will be able to either attend in person in the classroom to these sessions, or they can enter the class remotely, but those will be scheduled. The plan is for them to be recorded and then later made available online as well. So you can see that if you are either present on campus, or if you're present online, or if you are present online but can't make the scheduled times, you will have access to all course materials. And I think that is going to be a very flexible option for people.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Lukeman. And yeah, that is flexible. So basically anyone has access, whether you're on campus, virtual, or away off campus. So thanks for that. The next course format is the virtual format. So here, all content will be delivered virtually. So we've been calling this virtual or remote, and it could be scheduled, so for live attendance, or unscheduled again, so you can do it at your own pace. So even in this virtual format, there's still some flexibility. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Peter Williams, the head of physics, to give you an example of a virtual course delivery.
Thanks, Susie. So our introductory physics course is going to use this virtual model. And the reason is that it's a large class of about 100 students, so getting all those folks into a room and physically distancing is just not possible. And the format is actually going to be remarkably similar to what Dr. Lukeman just described, the hybrid. We're going to have recorded presentation material that you'll be able to view at any time, so that would be an asynchronous component. And during the regularly scheduled class time, we will have live online sessions that students will be able to log into, and they will be a combination of doing some examples and also fielding questions, helping with homework, etc. And I think it's another thing that we've thought quite a bit about in this context is how do we provide as much support as possible to students. So we have a good plan we've actually assigned 2 professors to this. We're going to have office hours online that are at different times. And we're also going to be offering our online help center. So we're really determined to make it as high contact situation as we possibly can while still being online. And we're pretty excited about how interesting this is all going to turn out.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So now we're going to go through a few frequently asked questions. I'm going to open it up to a few faculty members, and then, of course, if anybody has anything else to add, feel free. So the first question is for Dr. Benoit and Dr. Morley. What are some of the benefits of learning virtually or through a hybrid model? What's exciting about teaching in a new environment this fall?
Well, Dr. Benoit here, I'll start out with this one. I think one of the things that, one of the benefits of learning virtually or through the hybrid model is the fact that you can sort of rewind class whenever you want to in order to be able to see what it is that happened. So that example that might move a little too quickly when you're actually in the classroom, now that's no longer an issue because you can look at that content which is online you can rewind what the professor is saying and listen to that particular bit again. So it does sort of put the class sort of particularly on your time and your time schedule. So so I think that that's actually kind of the nice part about this hybrid model, particularly given the fact that for those of us who will be doing some material in class, the students come in having looked at all of the material ahead of time, and that is then the case in class to have that discussion, to sit down and do examples, to further cement the material that they already learned. It takes completely out of the situation the issue of I slept in and missed the class and I can't find someone to get good notes from, or all of that stuff sort of disappears. So I think one of the benefits and one of the things I'm really excited about in this particular model is being set up in that particular way so the students have access to all of the content. And instead of me going into a classroom and sort of talking about stuff that's hitting you for the first time, and those questions don't form until 20 minutes or a half an hour after the class is done, that you'll be able to see all of that material ahead of time and be able to come to class with those questions and us to be able to have more fulsome discussion in class on the material and be able to do some really good examples. I'm really looking forward to this, actually.
Thanks, Darcy. I agree with absolutely everything that you said there. And one of the things that I noticed when we went to teaching and having classes virtually in March was, which I'm going to answer both things at the same time, that I'm very excited about, is that I found that students who were more shy and less likely to speak up in class contributed in the virtual environment. We also used forums, like typed forums. And so as a professor, I got to hear from people who normally I wouldn't have heard from. And I'm delighted that that happened and look forward to that happening again in the fall.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, question 2 is for Dr. Currie. Acadia faculty are known for providing a personal connection. How will this change in a virtual or hybrid model?
Thanks, Maddie. Yeah, it won't, I think. So we pride ourselves at Acadia for having that personal connection, and that's not going to change, even though we're not physically together. And I think, as Dr. Williams said at the end, we're really excited about how COVID, it's kind of a silver lining from COVID, how it's pushed us to be even more innovative than we already were. And I'd like to think that we already are quite innovative. So you'll still have that personal connection with professors. It's not like you're going to engage with online material somewhere else and never see a face. You'll be engaging with your professors. There'll be online office hours with professors. In a hybrid model, you will get some face-to-face in the labs. And if you're not able to be face-to-face, maybe you'll be a virtual lab partner, or the labs will be recorded. So the engagement and that personal experience will still be there in spades. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything to that answer.
It's Randy. I'll follow up, Susie. So, you know, one of the things that I heard when we had to pivot virtually back in March was people really concerned about still maintaining that connection that we have with our students. And, you know, I think basically the answer was we were able to do it, and in many cases even more so. So much of our communication is through the nonverbal, right? Understanding, seeing our students' face, and that helps us to know if they're understanding the material, how are they connecting to the material, and we're still able to do that because we're able to see the students face to face. And even in those larger classes where perhaps all of our faces can't be on teams at the same time, we can have smaller breakout rooms. And as you know, a professor and instructor, we can visit those rooms and still have that face-to-face connection with students. And I think that this has created a really positive learning environment, and that, you know, you're still going to have office hours with your faculty, and some faculty will, even if the class is virtual, will still look to have small in-person tutorial sessions. Again, many of those would be recorded so that if you're not on campus, you'll still be able to access that. So this is not a concern of mine at all. I know I'm still going to make those connections with my students, and they're going to be able to make them with me.
And I absolutely agree with everything that Dr. Currie and Dr. Newman just said. And I just wanted to point out that right now what we're doing is how classes turned out for me when we did pivot in March, where you can watch Dr. Currie's face and you can watch Dr. Newman's face, and you can see when we nod and agree. And when you're sitting in a classroom, you can't see behind you unless you're like my mother, who had eyes in the back of her head. But so you actually can see reactions of people. And what I'm really fond of doing, or what I'm not fond of doing, I do it all the time when I teach, is read people's faces. And if they're looking like, I'm not quite getting that, then to ask a question. Okay, so how can I, what can I offer to help this be clearer? And so you can see that we can do that very well using this technology. So I agree with you, Susie. I think it will be just as good, if not superior, for students to see each other's faces.
Awesome. All right, question number 3 is for Dr. Gibson. What if I'm in a different time zone but want to attend a hybrid scheduled course?
Hi, everyone. That's a good question, and it'll depend a little bit on how the individual courses are being taught and who the different teaching styles of the different faculty. So once you find out how your courses are being taught, reach out to your faculty and just ask them what's going to work best for your particular situation. I know most of the faculty in biology are planning on recording the synchronous sessions and posting them with links on Acorn so they're easy for you to find. So all of the content will be there. But for some of the more problem-based synchronous sessions or doing case studies or those sorts of things, all of that information will still be available to you. If you're in a time zone that's close to Nova Scotia, it might be worthwhile trying to get out of bed and to come in and participate in some of those synchronous sessions. But all of the material should be available to you if that's not an option for you.
Thank you. Okay, question number 4, directing it to Dr. Newman and Dr. Benoit. If I'm an incoming student, what can I do to be better prepared?
Sure, I'll start. So first, I mean, Madison already mentioned the Acadia 101 series. I actually watched one of the videos that's on YouTube. It's online. It was a session on mental health, and that was just a wonderful video. I think a really good reminder of all of us to be really proactive and thinking about how we manage our mental health and our physical health day to day. Those two are, of course, both intimately connected with one another. I would also say, you know, practice your time management skills now. Get used to using a planner, whether it's going to be digital or whether you're going to be like me and have a paper version. You know, learn now, do some research now about when your classes are going to be offered. You should have access to the timetable, if not today, very soon, to see when your classes are going to be scheduled. I would say, you know, familiarize yourself with the academic supports that are going to be available to you. Dr. Williams mentioned the, I always forget the term, but the physics help sessions. There's math help sessions as well. There's a writing center. And of course, our supports, our counseling support center as well, counseling services. There's accessibility services that provide support as well. Never be afraid to seek help. Never be afraid to ask questions. And those are things that we can do to help be prepared to come to university. And, you know, I feel like I would be remiss coming from a psychology department if I didn't say it's a huge transition to come to university. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, it's a huge transition. So, you know, feeling a little bit of uncertainty as you enter this time in your life, it's perfectly normal. And, you know, everyone is feeling that way around you. Talk to one another, stay connected to your family and friends at home, stay connected to the new people that you meet on campus, and stay connected to your professors. We're there to help too.
Yes, so one of the things that I'd like to add there, being from the computer science school, is that a lot of what you're going to be doing in the fall term, particularly if a lot of your classes are virtual or mixed hybrid, is going to involve you using your computer. And every year, even in computer science, I see a lot of students arrive who, you know, they just got a new computer, they're not quite sure how everything works, and their use of that machine, which is really what it is that they're spending a lot of time on getting everything done, is I don't want to say poor, but efficiently they're not managing their time well and actually knowing how to use the device properly. So one of the things that people could do to prepare before they arrived at Acadia is to make sure that they had a really, really good and solid understanding of exactly how that computer works, and make sure that everything's set up properly on it, make sure everything is good to go, because you will be spending a lot of time using this machine once you arrive in the fall, and it's going to be your lifeline to connect basically with everyone. So you got to make sure that this is something that you really know how to work before you get here. This is not a good year to buy a new computer 2 days before you leave to start university. And this would be a bad year to do that. It would be a really good year to get that machine, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time and spend some time really making sure that you understand it in order to be able to make the best use of it when you get here.
Awesome, thanks. And I did just want to add as well, you know, we are here to help. If you're an incoming first year and you have an enrollment advisor, even still in the enrollment services department, you can definitely reach out to one of us, reach out to your department. Again, everybody's happy to help. We know these are strange times, so we're here for you. So Question 5 we have for Dr. Currie, and then I believe that Dr. Lukeman and Dr. Benoit will chime in as well. So do we have the option to complete our courses on campus 100%, or will it be a mixture of online and in-person deliverance?
Thanks, Maddie. So I think as has been said before, at some point later today, you will be receiving your courses and the modality that they're in. So it'll really depend on what courses you've chosen. And as we said, there will be a mix of on-campus, hybrid, and then virtual. And all of these decisions really and how we're operating campus for the fall are really dependent on the Nova Scotia public health directives. So it's not that you necessarily have an option, but there will be that mix, and we're really emphasizing flexibility and fluidity in our offerings. And I have to say, even so far, the answers I'm hearing, it's got me all excited about what's going to happen in the fall. But I will turn it over to Dr. Lukeman and Dr. Benoit in case they have something to add to this.
Hi. I guess I'll go first. Yeah, so I guess the answer to this, as Dr. Currie already mentioned, will depend a little bit on the courses that you're taking. I think many of our courses will have a large on-campus component, like they have basically every year. There will be, probably for almost all courses, some virtual component, which actually has been the case for many years as well. I know for a lot of our chemistry courses, for example, a lot of our assessment, a lot of our assignment systems are done online. I have the feeling that if you are going to be on campus, not only will you have sort of access to the usual on-campus material for most courses, but you'll have a lot of additional resources as well, which hopefully will make your experience better and you'll have an easier time studying.
So I agree with what was said so far. I do think that this is going to be just a little bit more than what it is that we've already done online. Most of us pass out assignments electronically anyway and do that online. Most of us have that option of answering email and doing those other things. So this is just going to be a little bit more of that. What your experience will be like will depend very heavily on the exact courses that you are taking. But I don't see this actually, honestly, as being a huge shift from what I was doing already, because I was already recording all of my classes for students to be able to rewatch. The only thing that I'm really changing in what it is that I'm doing is that midterm and exam that were written in the gym are now going to be something different this year. So I think for a lot of us that this is just an extension of what it is that we were already doing online. So hopefully your courses will, what your schedule will be like will depend on your courses, and hopefully that will suit you.
All right, and our last structured question is for Dr. Wayside and Dr. Williams. I was wondering how the labs would work with the social distancing guidelines and the online component.
Well, I can take that one to begin with. This is Dr. Wayside here, and it depends a lot on the labs. The labs in different subjects, even within one program, can be very different from each other. In some cases, we'll double up the number of lab sections at any one time, so you can keep social distancing if we're doing that one as a lab on campus, but most of the labs are going to have an online component. For example, my microscopy lab, where we use microscopes to understand rocks in the second year of the geology program, I'm going to do most of that lab, if not all of it, as a series of demonstrations. And I think you'll probably find that the labs will go a lot more smoothly that way, because you won't be floundering around trying to figure out what is it he's trying to make us do. I'll be doing it for you, and I'll actually be letting you see it. Some of the labs have got some really awesome prepared videos already available, and we've been investing in some of those. But let me give you an example of another lab that I'm going to be running this year. We've been taking some drone imagery along the shoreline from Nova Scotia, some really high resolution imagery, and we're going to be able to use that and actually use a neat little application that I found at the University of Tasmania in Australia, that we can use to measure the orientation of the rock surfaces right on the computer screen from that high resolution drone imagery. It's going to be really quite neat to do. And in the first year labs, we'll have field trips, for example, and one of the instructors will be there with a GoPro camera, and he will be recording the field trip as he goes around the various components of it. So you can see that there's a whole range of things, and that's just in the geology program. I'll pass it over to Dr. Williams if you want to tell us more about the physics program.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We're going to kind of a similar story. And I should add, you know, in our introductory physics class, we've been using technology extensively in the class already to collect data, to analyze data. We've been using video analyses and whatnot. So going virtual with those labs is very much going to be a natural extension of some things that we've already been doing. For some of our upper level labs, we're going to do things a little bit differently. They tend to be a bit smaller, so it will be possible in some cases for students to come in and do those labs, or as Dr. Reza had indicated, we may take some videos of us performing the experiments and then send out data sets for analysis. And one of the courses I teach is an electronics course, and I've been messing around with some new circuit simulation software, and it's actually pretty exciting. So I think there's some new opportunities that we're now becoming aware of that perhaps we weren't paying as much attention to previously.
All right, thanks everyone. So that concludes our sort of frequently asked questions portion. So now we're going to go to the live Q&A session. So again, we do have somebody monitoring the chat box. We're trying to focus on mostly academic questions today, so if you do have any operational questions, we can answer those at a later date, or you can check out those recorded webinars afterwards. So the first question we have here, how will the second year chemistry and biology labs be run? And they just wanted to say thank you for running the webinar. You're very welcome. So maybe for Dr. Currie or Gibson or Lukeman.
So this is Dr. Gibson from biology, and I can start with that. For most of the biology labs, we're not going to be having face-to-face labs just because the labs are full right now, and with social distancing, it's just too hard, right? The labs would end up being incredibly long to run the small groups of students through. But we have a number of really cool things planned. There's some really great animations for the second year labs, which are so cool. You can do little experiments and practice your pipetting and find out what happens if you drop acid on yourself. Don't do that in the real lab, but anyway, in an animation, you can have that sort of fun. And with some of the upper level labs, there's a lot of different things we're planning. And what we're thinking about is, you know, you come into the hands-on lab, there's certain skills that you learn and you need to have those skills as a biologist. So switching to online labs, what are the new skills that we can help you learn? So working with databases and doing all sorts of other sorts of projects that'll still help you develop those skills that you need as a biologist. So again, it'll depend a little bit from year to year, but for the second year courses, I think there's going to be a number of new opportunities that are going to be coming out of those labs that look like they're going to be really fun.
I can jump in and just say that you know, I agree with a lot of what Dr. Gibson has said. For our second year chemistry courses, actually many of our second year chemistry courses are small enough that we feel that physical distancing is going to be possible in a lot of our labs. So we're hoping to have as much in person as we can, with options as well for students that may not be able to be on campus. For example, if you're international and you're from far away, we will have hopefully some virtual options for our labs. For our larger or organic chemistry labs, we are again hoping to do maybe a blend, sort of more of a hybrid approach, just like the courses, where if you are present and able, we would like you to be participating in some online experiments or some in-person experiments, with options as well for students that aren't able to be on campus. Oh, just one thing I will add, if you are a chemistry major as well, and so for our chemistry majors, given that we have accredited programs which require certain amounts of lab hours. We do have plans to make sure that all chem majors will graduate with all of the chemistry skills that they need, so it's not going to devalue your degree in any way.
All right, thanks everyone. Okay, second question, will these streams be available to watch later? Yes, they will be. I know Robin answered there, but for anybody that maybe can't see the chat box, these webinars will all be available on the website, usually within 2 working days. This one should be good to go on Monday. All right, next question. For international science students, in the case that the government does not allow students to travel, if they got a study permit after March 18th, should we assume we cannot take our lab classes like bio, geo, chemistry, etc.?
Maybe I'll just jump in because I think that that question was probably addressed, that you'll hear that in the case of biology, for example, the labs will be virtual, and even in chemistry and in some of the geo courses where there's some face-to-face, these will be recorded. Dr. Williams talked about the physics lab, so you'll be able still to participate in the labs, even if you can't be on campus, I think is the bottom line.
All right. Okay, where can we see the new timetable coming out today? So again, Robin did answer this one in the chat box. You will be receiving communication about this. So just keep an eye out on your emails. Next question, maybe more general one for Dr. Currie again. How will midterms and examinations occur? And maybe, I don't know if other departments have talked about these, if people want to jump on afterwards as well.
Yeah, so that, you know, the specifics of that will be down to the course and to the faculty member. But much like with the labs, there will be instances maybe where people can't be on campus. So I'm imagining that much of the assessment will be done in a unique and virtual way. But again, that would be something that would be worked out with the individual faculty members. There will be some variation, but most of it's going to be online and virtual because in some cases we just can't do the physical distancing, or people can't be on campus for other reasons.
Does anybody else have a specific example or anything? If not, I can move on.
Could I just add to that, Maddie, please?
Take it away, Peter.
Thanks. Yeah, so in terms of assessment, you know, we our Learning Center ran a course this spring on how to run a successful online course, and one of the things that we learned there was that you really need to rethink about how you do your assessment. And I suspect that what you're going to see in a lot of classes is a shift from smaller numbers of large assessments like midterms and finals to larger numbers of smaller assessments. So for example, you know, you may be asked to watch a 10-minute presentation on a particular topic and then be directed to go to an online site and answer a few questions. And so I think there will be a lot more assessment of that nature. And that is educationally sound. That's the way to test your understanding. And if you get those questions wrong, then you can go back, review that material, and then come back and try them again. So I think we're going to see very different models of assessment than we've had in the past.
Right on. Okay, next question here. Will the individual departments be hosting student webinars or Q&As? And I just want to say something on that quickly for opening it up. We did do an academic webinar series that was sort of geared towards incoming first-year students. So if you're a first-year student wanting to learn more about those, you can find all of those recorded webinars at the Future Students page. So those are all uploaded there if you have specific questions in general about your department. But with regards to maybe you know, maybe they're wondering about a Q&A session specifically to do with these delivery options. Maybe if anybody has anything to say on that.
I might just say generally first, Maddie, that all departments and programs and schools are, you know, wide open for questions and answers anytime. So please contact the director or the head of the department with specific questions. And I think every program and department will be doing different things to be able to get this information across to students. They could be webinars, they could be individual reach outs to whole classes. So every program will be different, but I think key is that please don't hesitate to reach out for academic advising, to understand, especially once you get your timetables. And you may find that professors will be reaching out to you, to the class, to give you a little bit more information about exactly what you can expect.
All right, thank you, Dr. Currie. Okay, will class sizes be increased for the courses offered hybrid or online so that more students can take it? Specifically in psychology, as those courses seem to have filled up specifically for second-year students. So I don't know if Dr. Newman wants to
Sure.
Talk about this one. Thank you.
Sure. So you're right, our second-year classes have all filled. We are looking at adding a section of at least one of those second-year classes. And adding another second-year class that's currently not on the timetable, just so that we can absorb, because I know there's a lot of you on the wait list, and so we're attentive to that. In terms of increasing the class sizes, our second-year classes, we increase them slightly. Most of them are at about 80 students, 75 to 80 students, and honestly, any more than that, it really makes it challenging, if not impossible, for the faculty members to do the kind of activities and assessments that they feel is important to convey the elements of the class, especially in those second-year classes that don't have the smaller lab sections, right? It's not an issue for our second-year research design and analysis courses. We will continue to admit students to those classes because we have the smaller lab sections where you can sort of gain more of that connection with the instructor, and you have the smaller assessment opportunities. So I guess it's sort of a middle of the road answer in the sense that we hope to add more courses at the second-year level, but many of the classes won't be increased much beyond what they are now.
Thanks, Dr. Newman. I have another one for you, so just stay on the line there. What will happen for psychology studies that happened in person due to COVID? How will they work now?
Right, so there is a research protocol that's being developed in our department that addresses this specifically. So it certainly applies to the kind of research I do, which is event-related potential research and eye tracking, where it really is impossible to maintain physical distancing in order to actually set the person up. So we've come up with quite an extensive protocol that's currently being reviewed by Occupational Health and Safety. Some of the studies that are in person can still continue because they can be done 6 feet apart. And so faculty are developing those protocols now. So I still anticipate some of that happening. Our students that are doing ERP or eye tracking research, we hope that they will be able to do that research. But of course, it's the most important thing is the health and safety of students and faculty, and so we have to approach this cautiously.
Thank you. Okay, how will we receive our course-specific information? Those again will be sent in an email later on, so just keep an eye on those emails. I believe this next question Dr. Benoit answered in the chat, but I'll read it, and if anybody or if Dr. Benoit wants to speak to it again. What is the course format for students of Masters of Science in Computer Science? Is there a generalized course format, or does the format change for each course taken? And I believe what Dr. Benoit had mentioned was it depends on the individual courses that you will be taking. But I don't know if you want to speak to that, Dr. Benoit.
Well, so I will for a second. So in computer science, all of our graduate courses are actually cross-referenced as fourth-year undergraduate courses. So we have students taking both at the same time. And as a result, it's going to depend on the individual faculty member who's teaching the class as to what that format's going to be in terms of how it's taught. I will say that I know that computer science as a whole has agreed to make sure that the classes are accessible and assessment is being done in such a way so that the maximum number of students are going to be able to take the course. So if you're unable to make it to campus, if you're a master's student, international student who's unable to get into the country to take classes, then in that particular case, you may still be able to do the class as it currently exists, because that's the way we're trying to set things up. But we've really left the decision on how the course is going to be taught and how the assessment is going to be done up to the faculty member, because they do know the material best and they do know what's going to work best for the way that they're teaching it. So yeah, it will be on a per class basis.
Thank you. Okay, can we contact individual profs about course questions? I think I can speak for everyone. That's a big yes. If maybe you don't know exactly who to specifically reach out to, you can always contact the department in general, or perhaps the admin assistant. They'll be able to point you in the right direction. But Dr. Williams said it there. Yes, please do contact us. All right, are we going to need new software for virtual learning? I don't know if anybody has any specific examples, if they do know that certain courses will need software, or Dr. Currie, if you have any ideas on that.
I think within our faculty, there's no new software requirements. As Dr. Gibson said, in biology and in other programs, we're going to have different virtual lab environments, but that won't require particular software. There will be some exciting new formats, but to my knowledge, unless anyone wants to chime in, we didn't have any specific extra software requirements that would have been different from what you would have had before.
Thank you.
I'd just like to throw in there that the software that we're using now is all part of our Office 365 license. So I think most faculty members are going to stick with the software which is available on campus for all students to use anyway. And that's probably going to be the majority of the software. If not, any software outside of that is going to be the software that you would have been asked to pick up for that particular class anyway. So there's nothing really that's new or different than what would normally have been required, other than the use of Microsoft Teams, which is free.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, the next two questions are similar, so I'm going to string them together a bit, and if any faculty members have specific examples in the departments or comments, feel free to chime in. So what will TAing look like for a hybrid or virtual class? And the second part, the second question, if you have a position as a TA, will the job still be needed if the lab is held online?
I can maybe just address this generally, and then folks may want to pipe in with specific answers. And this is Cookie, by the way, who likes to come to meetings. I couldn't keep her out. So absolutely, TAing still will be possible. It will look different if you're TAing face-to-face lab and now it's virtual. But again, as you've heard, I think from this webinar, there's going to be all kinds of new and interesting ways to deliver lab material that will require the expertise of teaching assistants. So what the TA role will look like will really be largely dependent on that course. So you'd be working with the faculty member and the lab instructor to probably redefine the roles a little bit.
Yeah, I could chime in a little bit here too, please.
Go for it.
Thanks. Yeah, so we've been thinking quite a bit about the roles of TAs in courses, and so one thing you probably are unaware of is we've got somebody who's acting as a producer behind the scenes here in this meeting, who's switching people in and out, making sure all the questions are getting answered and whatnot. And that's certainly one role that we've envisioned for TAs during live sessions. And of course, we can rely on their expertise to answer some of those questions as well. So I think there, and we're really interested in making sure that we have really great supports for students. So online help centers, etc. So there's going to be lots of work for TAs, and I think it's going to be exciting and a little bit different for them as well.
Thank you. Okay, so again, these next two questions are similar as well, so I'm going to put them together. Does hybrid mean mostly online, or what is the percentage of online in person? And then the second question is, if any of our courses are hybrid, will we get the breakdown of online versus in person? And my understanding of it is that every course, again, will be different depending on the faculty and the course, but I'll open it up to the floor for that one as well.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Maddie. It will be dependent, right? And you'll be hearing from your professor about what the course will look like, and it's going to evolve a little bit as we get closer to when classes start. But yeah, it would be the individual faculty member will let you know how it's going to roll.
Something I could add there. Just waiting for, yeah, there we go. Just one thing I might add is I think a lot of our hybrid courses are going to depend on the student as well, where, you know, two students in the same class might decide to have sort of different fractions of their work completed either live or online as well. So you could imagine a course where one person attends virtually and does 100% of the course virtually online, whereas somebody else who's on campus may do a large percentage of that same course in person.
Thank you. Okay, next question. I was just wondering how students with disabilities would be accommodated, and they give an example of exams on a timer like last winter for some courses. So I'll just say something quickly in general, and then again, open up to the floor. But we have a fantastic team over at Accessible Learning Services who work, you know, day in, day out with students and their specific needs. So again, whether you're a current student or incoming, it doesn't matter. The folks over at Accessible Learning Services are there to help you. So highly recommend reaching out. And again, for anybody new on the line, all that contact information is online. But I don't know if any of the faculty members wanted to make mention of that. All right, perfect. So, and again, also probably to that point, it will depend on your professor, your faculty, but again, Accessible Learning Services will be very helpful in that department. Another TA question there, I believe that was answered previously. So yes, students will still be able to TA, although it might look a little bit different this year. Maybe one of the most pressing questions of all that I've seen in these webinars. Will we still be able to make wine and cheese during the microbiology labs?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure. I would talk to Hélène d'Entremont and see if she's going to be able to do that. I think those labs are in the winter term, so possibly we'll be able to do that by then, and it's a very important question for sure.
Okay. Can we get more information regarding the engineering department, if there are any changes in classes? So if Paul's on the line here, Dr. Arnold.
Yes, well, it's a similar comment to those made earlier. If you have specific questions, certainly let us know. The plan is at this point that the schedule will be as it has been originally established, with extended periods of time between classes. So there shouldn't be any disruption in that regard. And again, if you have any specific questions, feel free to contact me or Karen Roberts, our admin assistant.
Okay. Will the Math Studio have an online or virtual option? And maybe also with this, just kind of off the top of my head, if there's any thoughts with the MASH Center, which is our Math and Statistics Help, or any other help centers for that matter. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I can hop on here, Maddie. We don't have anyone from the math department online now, but I know that the math department is working really hard to make sure that the MASH and math help is available for virtual. So thinking about small help sessions and breakout groups, and in some ways, like we've already talked about, there may even be more help available, and it might be more accessible to more students. And so certainly from what I understand across all of our departments, that's going to be the case. That help will still be available, and in many ways, you'll be able to access it easier than you would if it was only face-to-face.
Yeah, I could add, Maddie, please.
Perfect, thanks, Peter. Go for it, Peter. I don't know if I was muted there for a moment.
Yeah, I could just add, I think one of the guiding principles we've all been using in thinking about how we're going to develop our courses is a recognition that some students will be able to come to campus and some students will not. So, and with the idea that no one's going to get left behind, we're working really hard to make sure that that everybody can get as similar an experience in terms of access and whatnot. So the only things I think that are going to be strictly face-to-face are the kinds of things that Dr. Rayside described earlier, a field course where it's pretty difficult to simulate tramping around in the woods or wading around in the stream with Dr. Rayside looking for rocks.
Awesome, thank you. So just wanted to make a comment on the time here. We have about 4 minutes left, so I am going to try and whip through a few of these at the end, but we will post a general email that you can send questions to afterwards as well. Will we have the choice to choose if we want particular classes online or done remotely?
So I think we answered that early on, Maddie, that that you're going to get your courses, and so those, I guess, decisions have been made whether or not they'll be face-to-face, hybrid, or virtual. But if you're, let's say, in a hybrid class that has some face-to-face components, but you can't be on campus, just like Dr. Williams said, there will be the ability to do that virtually. So there's flexibility and fluidity, and remember that you'll have courses that are scheduled, live attendance, but also unscheduled, so you can do them at your own pace. So lots of flexibility there. And no one will be left behind, too.
Thank you. Okay, a couple for Dr. Newman. Are forensic psychology and psychology of gender being offered this year?
Sure. Sorry, I thought I just answered that on the chat, but I must not have. We are in the process of hiring someone in applied psychology now, and so depending on who the successful candidate is, we do hope to be able to offer another applied psychology class. It won't be forensics, will not be one of them, but we do hope it might be a psychology of gender or human sexuality, for instance. These are second and third year classes that we know are very popular, and so we hope to be able to offer one of those classes.
Perfect. And another psych one, but I can answer this one, I think. So emailing questions about psychology, I'm sure you can reach out to Dr. Newman and perhaps Denise Banal. Yeah.
Absolutely. randy.newman@acadu.ca.
Yeah. And she did answer, Dr. Newman answered the design 1 and 2 work. And maybe, is there, Dr. Arnold, is there an engineering design 1 and 2, just in case this was the course they meant? They may not be. I never took any engineering courses myself, but.
Yes, the two courses, Design 1 and Design 2, will still be offered this year. Design 1 will be in the fall term, and Design 2 will be in the winter term, online as well as working on the hybrid basis.
Perfect, thank you. And the last one we have here, how will the new restrictions affect being able to take research topics or honors programs in biology specifically? So maybe Dr. Gibson or Dr. Currie?
Sure, this is Glennis Gibson. I'm just replying in chat. We're still planning to do our research topics, and that should work really well. I think with social distancing, having only a couple of students in the lab, or in the field, that should be fine. And the honors program, if you're in an honors program now, I'm assuming you've been in touch with your supervisor, and so you'll have a little bit of a work plan worked out. I know my honors students have certainly started their work. And if you haven't got it into the lab yet for most of them or into their field work, but there's certainly other aspects that you can do now. If you're worried about the honors for the following year, hopefully things will be resolved by then, and so it should all work out. But if you're doing your honors right now, reach out to your supervisor if you haven't already done so, and try to get started with some part of your thesis, the part that you can do without access to the lab or the field.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we are out of time today, so really sorry if we didn't get to your question, but definitely encourage you to reach out to your specific departments with those questions. If you're unsure of who to reach out to, we do have a general email address, which is Acadia, the number 4, the letter U, at acadiau.ca. So please feel free to reach out and ask any further questions. Again, this was recorded and will be available on Monday. And keep an eye out on your emails today for that course format release. And again, just continue to check out the webinars that we've been posting. There's a lot of great info there, and I just really wanted to thank all of our wonderful faculty that were on the line today. Really, really appreciate your expertise and your help. And they do want to hear from you. So, you know, new students, returning students, reach out to your departments. We're all very happy to help. And thank you everyone for joining us today.